Здравствуйте!
Before we start, here's a shout out to our friends over at Armchair Historian channel. If you like 18th to 20th century history, chances are you will like their videos, so check them out. Salutations! This video asks, how would the war between Armenia and Azerbaijan over the Nagorno-Karabakh go? For simplification's sake, the scenario assumes a closed political bubble, no outside interference of any kind, and same starting morale. The two countries have a long history of antagonism. During the last conflict, the region of Nagorno-Karabakh, which Azerbaijan claimed and which is populated mostly by Armenians, settled a ceasefire. That left it as a rogue state, a de facto independent country, but one that is not recognized by either Azerbaijan or Armenia. Armenian stance is purely to appease the world opinion though. In reality, Republic of Artsakh is quite connected to Armenia economically and militarily. Nominally, Azerbaijan is visibly richer and bigger than Armenia, roughly 3 to 4 times. That is also visible in military expenditure, which allows Azerbaijan to purchase more of the fancy high-tech weaponry. Both Armenia and especially Artsakh are more militarized, trying to keep pace with their richer neighbor. Troop numbers initially may seem less favorable to the Armenian side. Paramilitary is also somewhat larger when it comes to Azerbaijan, as well as useful reservists. But Artsakh has a military of its own. Sadly, information on it is quite rough. What is known is that at least half of the army is made up of Armenian citizens, and that Armenian army units do get to train and serve in Artsakh, shoulder to shoulder with their military. So the figures shown may include some double counting, but it's impossible to tell just by how much. The two countries aren't large, but the political divisions and starting positions of their army units are quite intertwined. The Azeri region of Nakhchivan is an autonomous republic with Azerbaijan. Roughly a fifth of Azeri army is stationed in it. The map does not show several other small exclaves that both countries claim that have been controlled by the other side since the last war. Part of Azeri troops stationed at the coast would need time to relocate. Also, the troops stationed in Nakhchivan would start the war being basically surrounded. Overall, troop numbers near the multiple front lines, when all are taken into account, initially favored the Armenian side. When it comes to army hardware, Azeris are somewhat ahead, both in numbers and quality. They have fairly modern tanks, for example. Of course, the geography of the region would make those tanks be used in a different way than they were designed for. Instead of spearheading large maneuvering units, they would once again get used as direct infantry support, basically mobile bunkers providing firepower. Armored infantry vehicles are also more plentiful on the Azeri side, including the fairly modern BMP-3. With Artsakh vehicles, the difference is not as pronounced, but Azeris do use heavier vehicles. The front line would, given such geographical features, move slowly, as it did in the last war. Azeris would try and sustain significant pressure onto Artsakh, while being defensive on the northern part of the front, part of which they may even be forced to surrender. Artillery, as always with ex-Soviet republics, is the king of the battlefield. Both sides have plenty of guns and multiple rocket launchers. Though Azeris still trump their opponents in numbers, even when Artsakh guns are added in. While Armenian arms are largely Soviet and Russian sourced, Azerbaijan has recently procured systems both from Russia, Israel and Czechia. Especially when it comes to unmanned aerial recon, Azerbaijan has leaned much onto Israeli systems. Armenia uses modest self-developed drones, while Azeris operate a variety of foreign ones, including attack drones. Harap in particular would be quite helpful in suppressing Armenian air defenses. The fact Armenia doesn't have fighter planes also points to tough choices they had to make, distributing their defense expenditure. Armenian jets are for ground attack only, best suited to support the frontline troops. Azeris operate the same type, but in addition to that, they have air superiority MiG-29s. Both types are usually credited with fairly short range, but given the fairly small distances involved, here they would be able to reach most of the required areas. Attack helicopter balance is similar, with Azeris having more modern variants. What Armenia lacks in fighter jets, they try to compensate with in number of SAM systems. Numbers-wise, especially with Artsakh air defenses, they seem to eclipse the Azeris. Basically, Armenian Su-25s would have a very hard time surviving for long in the war, due to their numbers. Azeri jets might give their owners a bit more tactical options, but MiG-29s aren't meant to do precision strikes. Azerbaijan, however, is in the process of integrating Turkish cruise missiles on their MiGs. Such standoff strikes would be accompanied by ones of ballistic missile kind. Both sides have various systems in use, with Azeris having more of the precision-guided systems. Such standoff strikes would not often yield tactical value though. Both sides would be entrenched in the hills and mountains, relying mostly on infantry. Against such, missile strikes would be largely ineffective. Air mobility-wise, Azeris are ahead when it comes to helicopters, but lack the cargo planes. Helicopters might come in handy for both sides to maneuver small troop units over the hills. They would also be crucial in attempting to supply possible surrounded units. Especially the Azeri region of Nakhchivan would be under tremendous pressure as the war goes on. Being completely cut off, it wouldn't really be able to support hungry offensive ops. It would have to defend itself, largely devoid of supplies and reinforcements from the rest of Azerbaijan. In the last war, Turkey threatened to get involved if said region was occupied. Without such allies accounted for, it's likely Nakhchivan would eventually be doomed. Armenia probably wouldn't be in a hurry to occupy it though, as it would have more pressing matters to attend to. Azeri pressure on Nagorno-Karabakh region would steadily keep increasing, especially as mobilized reserve pool is added, favoring the Azeris. If the topography included flatlands, Azeris would likely eventually conquer the entire region. However, with the mountains all around, the battles would be slow, bloody, and any push into Armenian-controlled lands would end with more Azeri casualties than Armenian ones. The northern front would likely be pushed back into Armenia, but again the mountains would discourage the Azeris from venturing too far over the border. Realistically, higher casualties would impact the morale, as it was the case in the previous war. At this point, we are talking years of warfare and casualties a few times higher than in the early 90s. Most of Nakhchivan would eventually fall, deprived of resources to defend itself. Even if almost all Azeri helicopters are used to deliver supplies, which is unlikely due to attrition, it wouldn't be enough. Azerbaijan would likely be unwilling to risk further soldiers by spearheading through the mountains to reconnect with it. It might, however, be able to encircle the central region of Nagorno-Karabakh by going through the less rough regions around it, where its technological and numerical advantage would help it more. In theory, given enough time, Stepanakert might get completely cut off. But the human cost of such a move might be prohibitive. Both sides would be very much worn out by such a war. The larger and richer Azerbaijan would be better positioned in such a no-allies world, possibly wearing Armenia out after years and years of war. In a shorter conflict though, the end result would be quite inconclusive. Big thanks goes to all my patrons on Patreon. Without you, we wouldn't be able to make as many videos. Do subscribe if you like my content, and if you want to be notified about new videos, don't forget to click that bell button. And remember, Binkov may talk about hypothetical wars, but only real peace can bring us all together.